Hello guys, what is up? So good to see you again. If this is your first time here, hello, my name is Haley and I help you create the life of your dreams through your dreams. And today we're talking about astral projection and how to induce an experience from sleep paralysis. If you've been here for a while, you probably already know how to induce sleep paralysis, but before we get into it, I'll just give you guys a brief explanation of sleep paralysis and then how to induce an astral projection experience from the sleep paralysis state. So sleep paralysis is completely natural. We go through this 4 to 5 times a night. It is a natural part of our REM period, or our rapid eye movement stage of sleep. And this is the stage of sleep where we dream. And we also experience sleep paralysis during this state because it's a protection mechanism, so we don't physically act out our dreams and punch a wall or something. It can be a little bit startling at first if you do experience sleep paralysis consciously. And if you've ever experienced this before, it's because you're in between awake and asleep. Your body's asleep, but your mind woke up before your body. And when that happens, you get to experience the body when it's unconscious. You'll notice a few symptoms and sensations tied to this, but I promise you that you're completely safe. It's a natural part of our biology, and all we're really doing is bringing conscious awareness into an unconscious state. Now, when it comes to states like lucid dreaming, you definitely want to be in REM sleep to induce a lucid dream because that's when that happens anyways. But with out-of-body experiences and astral projection, it can actually happen at any time, regardless of what state you're in, except it's most easily induced when the body is asleep. I'll be going over my favorite technique with you guys, the one that I just happen to use the most, and the one that is easiest for me. But I'll give you guys a few different ways that you can try out different techniques once you're in sleep paralysis. So step number 1 is to induce sleep paralysis. Now you can do this in several ways. A lot of people like to induce it like in the middle of the night during their sleeping cycle. That can work and it can not work because it's possible that you'll either miss your REM period or you may just fall asleep before you actually do the technique. If you are going to wake yourself up to try to induce sleep paralysis for an astral projection experience, I recommend waking up in the later periods of your REM cycle. So after 4.5 hours is one of your first longest REM periods. And then after 6 hours of sleep, that's going to be a long REM period as well. And basically, the longer you sleep, the longer your REM periods are going to be, and the more dreams you're going to have. So the more sleep that you have under your belt, you do have a higher chance of being able to catch your REM sleep at the right time. My favorite way personally is like an hour before I usually wake up, or sometime during the day, during like a nap or something. If I do it in the morning, I have a lot more awareness to be able to focus and carry myself into relaxation than if I did it without sleep or way earlier in my sleeping cycle. Most likely I would just fall asleep. So this really helps me kind of balance between still being relaxed coming out of sleep, but still having enough sleep where I'm not going to immediately fall asleep when I go to do my technique. That's a great time window to do this. During a nap is also really nice because you can sleep for 90 minutes or something, and then wake up using an alarm and then go into a meditation to kind of guide yourself into relaxation so you can enter that mind awake, body asleep. Really what we're doing is we're trying to see how long we can keep our awareness as we're falling into sleep. That's really how to induce sleep paralysis the easiest. And again, we want to be as close as we can to a REM period. That way we're not laying there for absolutely ever and nothing's happening. So if that's happening to you, you're either too awake or you're just not in the right states for that. So if you're noticing that you're laying there for like 4 hours or more, then I would just go back to sleep, or if it's during the day, then wake up, go about your day, and try again later. Now, I definitely recommend focusing on relaxation when you're trying to induce sleep paralysis, because if you're too focused on trying to reach sleep paralysis, if you're too focused on having an out-of-body experience or a lucid dream, you're going to build up way too much pressure, and you're not going to be able to relax and fall asleep. Your mind's going to think that it has to stay awake because you're trying to achieve something. So I recommend going to lay down and meditate, and the only thing on your mind is relaxation. How excited you are to relax. Do you get some time to wind down? And this is almost like tricking your brain not to be anticipating something, because that's going to actually keep you away from the experience. We really want to focus on clearing our mind and inducing deep relaxation, and then of course tying in awareness with that. Now, eventually, as you're just closing your eyes and relaxing, and by the way, I recommend finding like a fixed point to look at underneath your eyes, just so your eyes aren't going back and forth and you're overthinking. Like, you really want to try to relax your inner state as well. So find a fixed point to look at underneath your closed eyes if you can. And when you have your eyes closed, instead of seeing it like you're staring at a black wall, I recommend trying to see like depth through your closed eyes, almost like you're looking into a sky full of stars or a forest. You know, you're not looking at something, but you almost see into it. You see the depth into it. That's going to help create some images and hypnagogic imagery in front of your eyes. The more you can kind of open and relax your awareness, the more it allows to come in. And that's going to be one of the first things that you experience when you're entering this deeper relaxation, is you might start to see visuals and imagery. And if you see this is called hypnagogic imagery, and it is basically a sign that you're entering the hypnagogic state, which is the state we enter right before our body physically falls asleep. If you've heard of liminal dreaming, for example, it's literally using this exact state and just seeing how long you can stay aware in this state, and then you can experience really cool liminal dreams. So dreams outside of REM sleep. And again, this can be practiced, liminal dreaming. This can be practiced at any time during the day, and really all you're doing is anchoring this hypnagogic state. So if you run into this during your meditation, when you're looking to induce sleep paralysis, and you see these visuals, these flashes of light, maybe you start to see dream scenes, maybe your thoughts start to get kind of confusing, this means that you're getting really, really close to sleep. So it is important to try to anchor a little bit more awareness during this time. So I use like focusing on the physical body, kind of just how relaxed I feel. If I have like a fan or something going, then I will kind of anchor, use that as an awareness anchor and just kind of focus on the sound of the fan. You can count as well. Again, don't try to stimulate your mind too much, but whatever you can to kind of find an anchor of awareness, that's going to be your best friend. Now, it is possible to dip in and out of sleep. Maybe you did fall asleep and maybe you like entered a dream and you come out and then you're like riding this wave between dreams and wakefulness. That's the perfect state you want to be in as well, because when you come out of that dream, if you happen to just like wake up with your eyes closed, there is a possibility that you will wake up in sleep paralysis. That's happened to me several times. So if you're having a hard time staying awake, but you do notice that you're dipping in and out of sleep, that is a good sign. And the more you can kind of anchor your awareness into that deep relaxation, really you're just seeing how far you can carry your awareness into that deep relaxation. Eventually you are going to run into the symptoms of sleep paralysis. So like I said, first, once you're getting close, you're going to experience the hypnagogic imagery. You may feel some physical sensations like tingling, heaviness. This is something super, super common, just feeling that intense heaviness over your body. Eventually you will feel like light tingling in your hands and feet. And this is kind of what can turn into the vibrational state. So if you're new to this experience, when we experience sleep paralysis consciously, it can almost feel like our physical body is vibrating. It literally feels like a vibration. And that's going to be one of your biggest signs that you are actually in sleep paralysis. But we can almost feel it kind of amping up. It starts off as tingling. We feel this like light energy all over our body. And the more we can just keep that awareness anchored and just allow the process to unfold without trying to resist it or control it, and just focusing on that deep relaxation, you will notice that this tingling can turn into the vibrations. Now, another thing you may experience is a little bit of heaviness on your chest. Now, this is where most people get freaked out, because obviously the brain doesn't know what's happening during this state because it's usually unconscious, right? But when you become conscious of an unconscious process, you're going to notice some weird things your body is doing that you're not used to noticing. And again, we go through this state every 4 to 5 times a night. So your body knows what it's doing. This is a completely natural part of the process. You're just now aware of it with your conscious mind. But if you feel that heaviness on your chest, It's actually just your diaphragm naturally relaxing because we don't need to take in as much oxygen when we are asleep. Same with our temperature. You may notice if you get close to sleep paralysis, you'll notice you get cold chills perhaps. That's what happens to me. And it's because our temperature naturally drops when we're sleeping. So you're going to notice these things that if you didn't know what was happening, it could kind of freak you out. And again, if you ever woke up in sleep paralysis and you feel that pressure on your chest, you may notice that your brain's kind of freaked out. It's trying to figure out what's happening because it doesn't know, obviously, the unconscious process that our body goes through. It's like we're not used to witnessing that. So our brain tries to make up whatever makes the most sense. Oh, there must be someone holding me down. There must be someone sitting on my chest. And I want you to know you're completely safe. But if you've ever experienced like hallucinations, for example, when you are working on inducing sleep paralysis or when you wake up in sleep paralysis, it's because we're half dreaming, half awake. So we can tend to dream in our physical environment. And so if you notice anything that's kind of freaking you out during the experience, I recommend keeping your eyes closed. I always keep my eyes closed because I don't want to mess up the experience and like wake myself up. But I also just recommend you keeping your eyes closed so you can concentrate. But if you are ever in a period where you kind of are freaked out with sleep paralysis and you actually want to get out of sleep paralysis, then there is one thing that you can do. When we're in sleep paralysis, our muscles are paralyzed, right? So you'll notice that you can't really move if you do wake up in sleep paralysis. Again, it's to protect us. Our body thinks that we're sleeping. It's just our brain woke up before our body, and that's why we're experiencing this state. But our muscles will be paralyzed, but our respiratory system is not paralyzed. So you can actually wake up your body by creating an elongated like S sound. And when you do that, you'll be able to feel your diaphragm naturally like collapsing in a little bit. You're going to feel your belly contracting. And that's going to be enough to wake you up. It's going to be enough to wake you out of sleep paralysis. So if you ever do get freaked out and you just don't want to try anymore, then that is something that you can do. But I promise you, you are completely safe. The biggest thing with this experience is that it's thought responsive. And so our thoughts and the emotions we have express themselves in our physical environment very quickly. And so that's why it can feel a little bit freaky, is because whatever our emotional state is at the time or wherever our thoughts go, it's kind of like a lucid dream. It can kind of manifest in front of us. So just keep that in mind. You have complete control over the experience, especially if you use your emotions to kind of change and transform the experience, if it's ever too much. But really for me, it's not scary to me. It's just like super exciting and like overwhelming sometimes because the physical sensations can be so powerful. But I've noticed the more that I've done it, I experience less of the physical sensations. Like now, I don't really get the vibrations super strongly, but I can still tell when they're there. So the more you have experience with this, your experience will slightly change. So I'd recommend just playing with it, running your own experiments, and seeing what works for you. But when you experience these sensations, and maybe you also hear some like high-pitched noises, there's a lot of things you can experience during this state. And there are some more common things and some things that maybe you don't always experience that you may experience. For example, like this really loud rumbling sound. That's a big part of sleep paralysis, but a lot of the time I don't experience it. I just feel like this physical feeling on my body, and then a lot of the time I just feel my body floating up, or I'm like entering a lucid dream. Sometimes I don't even have to do anything. I just notice that it's happening, and then the experience kind of carries on by itself. So it won't feel like so much work all the time to enter sleep paralysis and to practice astral projection. It's just as you're figuring out what it's like to be conscious in the unconscious state, and as you're learning out the states that you go into and the different sensations you'll experience, you'll get more comfortable and it'll be a lot easier than you think. But once you are in sleep paralysis, again, a lot of these sensations will tell you when you are in sleep paralysis. What I like to focus on is imagining physical movement of the body. So for a lucid dream, I usually recommend that you create this dream scene in your mind with all of your senses, like if you're wanting to walk on the beach in a lucid dream, imagine the sound of the water, imagine the feeling of the sand on your toes. What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you taste? But with an astral projection, what I usually do is I don't imagine that I'm somewhere else in some other world. Really, I imagine that I'm right where I am, and I just imagine that I'm slowly slipping off my bed, like you would in the morning if you didn't want to get up in the morning and you just kind of like slip off. I just imagine that as slowly and vividly as I can. And you know when it's really starting to work because you will feel yourself slipping off. Now, what's cool is the brain doesn't know the difference between something we're imagining, something we're thinking about, something we're dreaming about, or something that's actually happening. So if we can make what we're imagining more real than what's actually happening, then our perception, our awareness can actually switch to what we're imagining, our perception, our energy body, and we can exit that way. But it's really interesting how the brain can kind of get confused on what is real, because once you start to enter sleep paralysis, you start to disconnect from the sensations of your physical body. You may have noticed that eventually sometimes you almost feel like you're floating. You can't necessarily feel your body, right? And the brain's not necessarily used to that. And so it's going to try to grasp onto and try to figure out where the physical body is. And if you can create a new reality, quote unquote, in your mind of you're actually slipping off the bed, or maybe you're standing in the corner over there. That's another technique I'm going to talk to you guys about in a second. You can actually trick your brain into switching to that perception that you're imagining. And it's really interesting because wherever you imagine your awareness is in your mind during this technique, that's a lot of the time where you will shift to in your out-of-body experience. But because the feeling of movement is so intense for me during my experiences, a lot of the time I'll just play around with that. Like I will imagine myself slipping off the bed. I will imagine the bed spinning really slowly and see if I can actually start to feel it. And it's really, really crazy. And once you start doing this, you may experience the sensations get a little more intense, like the vibrations, for example. And this is a really good sign that you're about to exit the body. We can really direct it from imagining this movement or imagining standing in a different spot in our room. So that's the other technique. If you don't want to imagine that you're rolling out of bed or you're slipping out of bed, a really trippy, cool one to play with is called the target technique. And it's basically, before you do your technique, you're going to find a target in your house or in your room that you're going to imagine that you're standing at when you're meditating in your technique. So let's say that I am going to imagine that I am in my office when I'm astral projecting, but I'm going to actually meditate in my bedroom. I'll lay down in my bedroom, we'll go through the whole process that we said, but once I start to feel the intense sensations of being in sleep paralysis, or I just intuitively know that it's time to start doing my technique, because sometimes you just get that intuitive nudge. Once I do that, I will imagine that I'm actually standing at whatever point in my office I took the time to go study before this technique. You really want to study this target as much as you can before you enter your meditative state, because you want to be able to truly feel like you're actually there. So before the technique, I'll go into my office, I'll choose where I'm going to imagine me standing in my technique, and then I'll observe what that looks like. What colors are around me? What does it smell like? What textures are around me? Like, how tall am I to my ceiling? Like, I want to be able to imagine everything when I am in sleep paralysis trying to induce this experience. I'm literally trying to shift to my office. So I want to take in as much detail as I can. And then I'm basically going to recreate that experience in consciousness when I'm in sleep paralysis. And at first, maybe it won't work. Maybe it will, but you'll notice that you'll have these moments where you almost felt like you were there. Like you felt like you shifted for like half a second, and it will feel super trippy. And this shows you that really our perception is bendable and our consciousness is amazing, and it can assume whatever state we want as long as we can create that reality in our consciousness first. But these are definitely my favorite techniques for this, because there's so many ways to test this out, movement, and then just imagining that you're standing somewhere else. there's been times where I have astral projected from imagining that I'm doing the dishes. And I think the reason why it happened is because there's so much sensation when you're doing the dishes, the temperature of the water, the soap, the sounds, so try to play with that for your out-of-body experiments, because truly it's really insane how sound, we can all of a sudden create sound when we're doing a technique just by imagining it. I've been in sleep paralysis and imagined the smell of lilacs, because that's like one of my favorite smells on earth, and I can actually start to smell lilacs. I've gotten I think it got me lucid instead of out of body, but one time I used a song that I really like, and I just imagined it playing out loud. And choose a song. If you do this, choose a song that you really know, you know the instrumentals, the sound, and just play it in your head. And in sleep paralysis, you can start to actually hear it out loud. And these are, if any of these trippy things happen to you when you are even just relaxing in bed, or meditating, or you're trying to induce sleep paralysis, these are all signs that you are really, really, really close to being able to induce an experience. So once you're in sleep paralysis, play with movement, play with creating a whole other perception in your mind of what you're actually doing and where you're standing. And I promise you, your experiences will be so crazy. And you can just practice this in meditation too. Sometimes I'll just meditate and I'll just practice the target technique, or I'll just daydream and imagine myself I'm walking somewhere super beautiful. I love imagining like wildflower meadows and stuff like that. But it's crazy how often those experiences, when I'm not even necessarily trying to induce an experience, I'm just taking time to relax and just allow my mind to play and explore. A lot of the times that's what gets me to either these deeper states or sleep paralysis in general. A lot of us don't focus on the relaxation piece. We try, right? And that's where it gets kind of difficult, because we're trying to relax. We're trying too hard to relax, because we also know what our goal is. We want to have a lucid dream, or we want to have an out-of-body experience. So I just recommend forgetting that when you go to lay down for your technique. Just focus on how grateful you are to be able to relax, that you have this time to disconnect. And that will really take a lot of pressure off of your mind. And then whatever happens, happens. It's a part of the journey. It's a part of your practice. It's a part of learning how to induce these states. But that is definitely probably my favorite techniques as far as inducing out-of-body experiences. And again, there's tons of ways to play around with this, but I just recommend having fun and focusing on relaxation and awareness. Alright guys, that is all for this video. I hope that you got something out of it. If you like the content that I create on this channel, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you are looking for nightly ambient binaural beat sleep music to use for your lucid dreams, out-of-body experiences, and just to get better sleep, check out my second channel, The Lucid Mystics Sleep Music. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one, and as always, I'm sending you endless love and endless lucidity.